you want a little magic in the music that you like, if you want a little music in the magic that you like, if you want it all, give us a call, we're Magic Mike.
Hello, everyone! Welcome to the
Hey!
first
Hello, hello,
episode of the
hello.
Magic Mike podcast.
Woo!
It's a podcast hosted by avid music lovers. All things music will be discussed in this podcast. Yay! Welcome, guys!
Welcome.
So glad to be here.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, the audience needs to know who we are first. Let's introduce ourselves.
Of course.
So, hi, I'm Aidan.
Hi, I'm Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ben.
Shani.
Yay!
Yay. So now you're probably wondering, like, why am I listening to this podcast? What's this podcast for? What's its purpose? And I don't think there's a better person to tell you what the purpose of this podcast is than our very own Shani. Shani, take it away.
Okay, so we decided to make this podcast because I think it's pretty much an undeniable fact that as Filipinos, music is a really important part of our lives. It's part of, our everyday living and everything. But because of that, a lot of Filipinos are aspiring musicians. There are a lot of aspiring Filipino artists, but I guess the sad reality is that not a lot of them make it big. Not a lot of people know what to do to make themselves successful. Now, what we've done as people who really love music is that we've researched about how the music industry is like, what things have worked for people, about what things have worked for musicians, and things like that. So, through this podcast, we're hoping that all those aspiring musicians out there get some inspiration or become more informed about how the music industry is like, what they can do to make their art more known and accessible to the world. I also think that this podcast is not just for those aspiring musicians. This podcast is also just for anyone because I think music is really part of everyone's lives, as I mentioned earlier. So I think it would be better if uh, people just became more informed about how the music industry works, what this thing that they keep listening to every day, like what's the story behind. So I guess that's why we made that podcast.
Okay, before everything, actually, we asked you, the audience, to send us some questions before we record any of the podcasts. So I think we have one question coming in.
Like and subscribe.
Hi, I'm a student from USJR. I'm an avid listener of music. I remember as a child, I used to download music from sketchy places like LimeWire. It used to be so hard to find music safely online. But nowadays, with apps like YouTube and Spotify, it is much easier to find music online. I wanted to ask when and why exactly this shift happened.
Wow. So that was a pretty loaded question. And I think the only
There.
way
True,
we
very.
can answer that is
Thank you,
if we
viewer.
trace like the entire history of the music industry. Now this won't be too in depth, but we'll go through the basics. When do you guys think like the music industry started?
I think it's with Mozart,
I
maybe?
guess when the cavemen were like
The
Yeah,
the
caveman.
kind of
the
You're
Flintstone
booga
era.
booga booga booga, and then the yabba dabba doo.
well, of course, music I think like started at that time, music in itself. But as an industry, as a business, it actually only became super profitable fairly recently in human history. At first, it was just based on live performances, plays, musicals, operas. You had to go to a theater to listen to this kind of music. And then then science came,
Science.
and science noon, music started to the music industry started to become based on selling sheet music or letting people play their own music at home. And then science took things a step even further when suddenly paper became a thing
Wow.
and
Paper.
the sheet music stuff again.
Paper.
And then the phonograph happened towards the end of the 19th century and early 20th century. The phonograph, I bet you guys know what the phonograph is.
Is that like a cell
You
phone?
guys
That's the
Is
one
that
that
a
like
bad word?
like,
Are we supposed?
like
Something
the
like this.
The one that did
Oh,
this.
Looks,
The
the
one that
pea
did this.
shooter.
looks like a lamp, and then like it looks like a
Yeah, like just like
trombone or
that.
something. And then basically what it does, right, is there's this disc that has all the musical information, the sound waves, and then there's a needle, and then it will
Weird.
trace the sound waves so that it can replicate it. So that became like super famous at the start of the 20th century. That led to the rise of jukebox machines, which is basically phonographs, but then to play music, you had to like insert a coin and stuff like that. And then a way for people to market music at that time and to play music as well was through the radio. So people would advertise their albums in different radio stations, and they would also play those songs in the radio stations, especially since it was war, and that was like how the soldiers had fun, I guess.
Had fun in the
And
war.
the
Mm-hmm.
music industry
Mm-hmm.
advanced towards the end of World War II when people started selling LPs. LPs are basically like a record but with many songs in it. And that was because the phonographs became, more advanced.
Oh, so what's next, Shani? What was next?
Well, I think there's actually a song for what's next in the
A song?
alphabet. A, B, C, D.
Wow, Shani. Wow, thank you for that song. Like that brings us to our next era, the CD era. So the CD era started around the time when the jukebox era was ending. It was also around the time of the golden age of the musician celebrities. Think of people like the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and Michael Jackson. So wait, before I move on to the CD era, it's important to know like why it happened. I guess these celebrities wanted to like
So like, why
market.
did it happen?
So
Like
what did it happen
I'm
there?
gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it. Like
Go.
I will. These
Okay.
these celebrities wanted to like market themselves to a larger audience because like LP like long playing records, right? It's called
Like the
long
one Shani
playing.
said
The
kanina.
Mentioned
one
it.
Shani mentioned.
Yeah, like it's called long playing, but like ironically, it didn't last very long because they were vinyl based. They're made of plastic, so they broke very easily. So like the name like kind of ironic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, like also
Yeah.
like the vinyl based method of listening to music back then, it's not very travel friendly, and also like jukeboxes weren't in like every house, so like not everybody could listen to music.
Yeah.
So like before the CD era, cassette tapes were made. Like whoa, before the CD,
Cassette?
yeah, cassette tapes were invented. Like they were invented in the early 1960s. And have you guys seen a cassette tape? Like, do you guys know how it works?
I don't think.
No, I
I
Yeah,
don't
don't.
really.
I
I don't
think
think.
yeah,
I don't think
in
any of us were
movies.
yeah.
born.
We're too young to know, but
Only
I
the
like,
think
movies.
we're
Only the movies. No.
yeah, the
well,
movies. Like from what I
Like,
know, there's like it's a cassette tape. Cassette tape is like there's like magnetic tape, and like you play that in a player, so like you can listen to the music. And if you're done with it, flip the cassette tape, and it plays a different song. That's why
Ben,
yes.
do you
Oh,
have
so
a
like these
visual
that.
aid example?
I
yeah, you have prop. You have
I
prop.
have
Then give
props.
us a
I
prop.
have props. Oh hey, I will use my cool adventure camp. Wow. It's so anyways, like do you see this?
Full
Wow.
We're not
adventure
sponsored,
camps
by the
in
way.
Not
that.
sponsored.
Disclaimer:
Not
we're not
sponsored,
Not
not
sponsored.
sponsored by
sponsored.
them, but like imagine this. Do you see the string? This is the tape. So like how it worked is like if it was playing, the tape would unwind and unwind until eventually whoa, it's done. And if you were done with that, you flip it to the other side. You flip it to the other side and you play a different song here. It's like for us
But that's
like
so
yeah,
tiring.
for us it sounds like stupid I guess in a way. But like back then it was
Is
like
that like the pencil thing? The pencil
the
thing. Like
pencil.
the older people are like, oh my god,
Yeah,
I remember that.
like it's stupid back. It's stupid for us, but like back then it's like such a revolution. It's like whoa, like what? You can do this with cassette. You can make cassette tapes. You can play music in that. Like what? Like people were amazed. But then anyways, cassette tapes didn't really last long because this was when the CDs came in, the CD era. Like
Wow.
whoa, CDs
I
came
think we're
in.
old enough to remember
We
CDs.
know
Like,
CDs. Like it was
Yeah.
at least that, like we know that.
like I have CDs in my house still. But like anyway, CDs
Yeah,
like
my dad has also.
it stands for compact disc because they were very compact. What?
Wow.
What?
Should you have known that?
Wow. I didn't
Crazy.
know that.
So like anyways, CDs like they beat cassette tapes very easily because like there are three main reasons actually. Like first, it was much easier to use CDs. Cassette tapes, whenever you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to rewind the song, you had to do the have you seen some
The
movies? The rewinding the tape manually. But like
yeah.
Yeah.
anyways, like we're too young to know cassette tapes. But like it was much easier to use CDs. And two, compact disc could hold more songs than cassette tapes. Cassette tapes could only hold a number of songs. CDs, like, they're very compact with data.
What's the number, Ben?
I'm not sure of the exact number.
Interrogation.
Well,
But now
because
it's a lot.
yeah, I'm
We're
not
not old
sure.
enough.
I'm not sure how many songs a cassette tape could hold because I don't have a cassette tape. But
Because
like,
we're young.
yeah,
Really too young.
but like CDs, they could hold more songs. That's all we need to know. It could hold more songs back then also. So like, yeah, CDs
I
were
feel
like
like
a
the
choice.
old people getting triggered watching Ben's part of the podcast.
Sorry to all the old boomer people in the audience.
Sorry,
Alright.
guys.
Anyways, the last
We're
reason
not
was like this was the
about
most important reason. Like you could skip directly to the song you wanted to listen to with the CD.
What?
If you use a cassette tape, you had to like wait for the song to come out in the tape. So you had to wait a while. Like you couldn't skip. With CDs, you can skip directly to the song you wanted to play. So like yeah, that's why CDs overtook cassette tapes easily in the music industry. Of course, cassette tapes didn't like go back. Didn't like stop producing cassette tapes. It was a back and forth battle between cassette tapes and CDs. But I say like battle because CDs usually won. What cassette tapes
Mm.
it started to surge again with the Sony Walkman. Do you guys know what the Walkman is? Like you see in those movies, they
It's
bring it.
like the
Like the one
ancestor of the
in
iPod.
Guardians in the Galaxy.
Yeah, the one Guardians of the Galaxy. Like the main character uses that. That's something like a Walkman. I'm not sure if it was a Walkman exactly, but like that's basically what the Walkman does. So like cassette tapes were back for a while, and then suddenly mini DVD players were there. It came out to battle the Walkman, and people were like, "Oh, DVDs are like, oh, CD players are like much better. CDs are much better." But then
Mm.
suddenly, like they fought until the end of the 20th century, and when the 21st century came, like suddenly, whoa, the iPod was created. Do you guys remember what the iPod was?
Like and subscribe.
Like,
Oh wait, Ben, interesting point you said about iPod. Actually, like before you get to that, I guess it's important to talk about because that's the part where the digital age, that's the digital age beginning, like from like the CD age or whatever like old age you're at. We're gonna move to the digital age now because it's like this is when the internet started forming, right? It was like, whoa, the internet, you can like send
wow,
email and stuff. And one of the things they discovered was that you can actually like download music. So we had stuff like
yeah,
Napster. I don't think any of us, you know Napster? Like I don't know any of us
No.
are old.
no,
No.
LimeWire, is
I'm a
that the
lime,
thing?
I'm
Like
a
the one,
LimeWire
like the one,
person.
Like
our
the other
beautiful
question.
question.
I
Like
love the
that.
viruses. That's my
LimeWire.
favorite.
I guess sites like that started popping up, like the torrent sites or like the illegal downloading sites.
That's
So
true.
like when people found out you could actually download music, like instead of like bringing physical CDs and cassettes, that's when they're like, nah, we don't want that anymore. We want the new ones. And like
Yeah.
so like they could download it into their phones and whatnot, which led to to Ben's to what Ben mentioned earlier about the iPod, which was actually the same thing. They downloaded from the iTunes store, one of the first music stores, I think. So they just downloaded it into their iPod and like bring it all around. And I guess that's part of what brought or like the reason why CDs and cassettes declined like
Uh,
at the start or like towards the end of the 20th century, like when we started like moving towards the
yeah,
internet. But
that's
speaking
true.
of like sites like Napster, which are streaming sites, I guess the
Oh,
only thing we can relate to is like Spotify. But I done
Spotify?
aren't you? Yeah, the
Spotify.
like Spotify stuff.
Are
Spotify
we
Wrapped.
Magic mics.
are we in the streaming era now? But yeah,
Right now, for sure.
from from what Elian said, basically like there was like this whole digital thing going on, and then I feel like it was like inevitable that we had the internet, and then we had all these like torrent websites that are like feeding people music. It was inevitable to not make a whole business out of having a library of music already available to the listeners, to consumers worldwide. So that was basically the whole idea of platforms like Spotify, YouTube, where they just allow people to search for what they want, and then people will get what they want immediately. No
Wow.
need to download or buy anything and stuff like that. So that's like the streaming era that like most of us are already familiar with, since we're very young, right? We're
This is our
very young.
era already.
This is the
Basically,
one we know about.
This
This
is
is
the
our
one
version of
we know
cassettes and
about.
CDs.
Cassette tape.
Yeah. But yeah, so the streaming era is very popular now. It's basically changed the whole music industry and how it works. Like chart performances like started to started to base themselves off of streams more now than selling of CDs and stuff like that, because most people have been using streaming platforms. But it's been both good and bad. Do you guys
Why?
know why?
I'm not
I
sure
feel
why.
like it's because the artists
Y-
don't like how do they even earn if it's like for free basically?
Yeah,
Yeah,
diba? Like you can just
that's
download
the
it anywhere.
that's the major problem with like this whole streaming thing. I think there was a dude,
Major problem.
the David Byrne, who's like the front man of the band Talking Heads, very popular band like
Oh,
in
that's
the
an
punk
interesting
scene.
band.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know that
so yeah,
person. Like
there.
who's
Yeah.
who's that?
He wrote an op-ed for the New Yorker that basically like exposed the music industry like for not being transparent with the income that artists are getting, because you see like labels have partnerships with these streaming services, and then they don't necessarily have to pay their artists the amount of income they're supposed to be earning. Like it's just a transactional business between the label and the streaming service, and then the artist is not involved. They don't know how much they're supposed to earn, and they're not given that transparency basically from the streaming service and the labels. And it's even worse for those people who work independently, those musicians who don't have
The
labels or
indie
like for, yeah,
underground.
the indie underground
Underground.
scene
Like you
people.
won't know them. They're kind of underground.
Yeah, they're very unique. So yeah, like they don't have that kind of level of success that these other bigger people will get. So their income, they don't use it as a source of income anymore. It's just they have other hustles like live performances and stuff. Actually, if you look at the graphs right now, um,
Wow.
YouTube Music pays their artists the least, with $0.0006 per stream or
How many
per view.
how many
How
zeros
much is
again?
that in peso?
That's
How much is that in
how much
peso?
is that in peso?
Like 10? Like 10
10
pesos?
Not
So
Oh,
even.
10
I feel like
centavos.
it's like less than a
I feel like it's even
Less
less.
centavos.
not even.
Yeah. Spotify like does it's still 0.0038. So they just added like another digit on there. And
Wow.
Apple Music is $0.0064, and that's per stream. So imagine like how much money you're supposed to be getting per stream. Like how can that be like a source of income for these people? But it's also not all that bad, I guess, because with streaming platforms out, we've got new kinds of music. Like music has been very diverse. Like the longest running number one hit like from 2019, Old Town Road. Like it's basically a mix of like country, hip hop, and and R&B all in one. And you wouldn't have gotten that kind of thing from the from the cassette era or like the CD era and stuff like that. And artists have also been able to like shift.
Beat that, boomers.
So
So
true.
artists have also been able to be like chameleons. Like Taylor Swift has done multiple genres because of the streaming era, along with Tyler the Creator. And also more artists have been discovered from all around the world. Adele got famous from YouTube, Lord from SoundCloud and stuff. So yeah,
Mm.
that's basically the streaming era that we're living in right now. That like the music industry is still confused on how to cope with it, but then we're learning as we go.
It's like things just became more unpredictable with like the stream.
Yeah.
Like there's so much possibilities now.
Yeah, there's so many trends that just come and go. And also TikTok has been part, so who knows what's gonna
It's
happen.
counted for like chart performance.
Yeah,
Like
it's counted now.
Wait, counted? Wait, what?
okay,
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, those
people
are
like
counted, diba? Or
the
something.
songs in TikTok that get famous, they're usually the ones that go number one. Like, Say So
Okay.
so when
and The
people like that,
Box.
True.
Doja
like
Cat.
Doja Cat.
Magic mics.
So that's the end of today's podcast episode. You person from
Yeah.
USJR, thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, viewer.
I hope our podcast helped answer your question. And stay tuned, viewers. Like we have more episodes to come. And so goodbye for now, guys.
Bye guys. Bye
guys,
bye.
If you want a little magic